mantras of our Divine Mother. Our Divine Mother says, how beautiful, grand, simple, and calm everything becomes when our thoughts turn to the Divine and we give ourselves to the Divine. With my love and blessings, says our Divine Mother. Words of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, taken from the collective works of our Lord Sri Aurobindo, SABCL, book Letters on Yoga, page 1000.
Te connaître et te vivre intégralement. In the heart of the shadow, in the bosom of the silence, burns the lamp that can never be extinguished, the fire of an ardent aspiration to know thee and totally to live thee.
Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, there is an inner being and an inmost being which we call the psychic, When one meditates, one tries to go into the inner being. If one does it, then one feels very well that one has gone inside. What can be realized in meditation can also become the ordinary consciousness in which one lives. Then one feels what is now the ordinary consciousness to be something quite external on the surface, not one's real self. What you feel as the new life is the growth of the inner being in you. The inner being is the true being, and as it grows, the whole consciousness begins to change. This feeling, your new attitude towards people are the signs of the change. The seeing of the inner things also usually comes with this growth of the inner being and consciousness. It is an inner vision which awakes in most sadhaks when they enter this stage. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it is also a characteristic of this inner consciousness that when it is active, there is felt behind the action or containing it a complete quietude or silence. The more one concentrates, the more this quietude and silence increases. That is why there seems to be all quiet within, even though all sorts of things may be taking place within. It is quite usual that what takes place in the inner consciousness should not express itself at present in the outer physical. It at first creates changes outside, but takes possession of the outer instruments only afterwards. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says it is a very good sign when the thoughts and the attempts at disturbance comes, there is something that remains calm and cool. For that, like the psychic reply from within, shows that the inner consciousness is fixed or fixing itself in part of the being. This is a well recognized stage of the inner change in sadhana. Equally good is the emergence of the self-existent Ananda from within, not dependent on outward things. It is a fact that this inner gladness and happiness is something peaceful and happy at once. It is not an excited moment like the vital outward pleasure, though it can be more ardent and intense. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says another good result is the fading out of the feeling that the work is mine and the power to do it with the outward consciousness not engaging the inner being. The sense of release as if from jail always accompanies the emergence of the psychic being or the realization of the self above. It is therefore spoken of as liberation, mukti. It is a release into peace, happiness, the soul's freedom, not tied down by the thousand ties and cares of the outward ignorant existence. It was, of course, the Divine Mother's face you saw in your vision, but probably in one of her supraphysical, not her physical form and face. That is also indicated by the great light that came from the form and rendered it invisible. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the silence in which all is quiet and one remains as a witness, while something in the consciousness, spontaneously calls down the higher things, is a complete silence which comes when the full force of the higher consciousness is upon mind and vital and body. Things inside can be seen as distinctly as outward things, whether in an image by the subtle vision or in their essence by a still more subtle and powerful way of seeing. But all these things have to develop in order to get their full power and intensity. Next, experiences of the inner and the cosmic consciousness, part 2. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, there is a stage in the sadhana, in which the inner being begins to awake. Often, the first result is the condition made up of the following elements. First, a sort of witness attitude in which the inner consciousness looks at all that happens as a spectator or observer, observing things but taking no active interest or pleasure in them. Second, a state of neutral equanimity in which there is neither joy nor sorrow, only quietude. Third, a sense of being something separate from all that happens, observing it but not part of it. Fourth, an absence of attachment to things, people, or events. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, it seems as if this condition were trying to come in you, but it is still imperfect. For instance, in this condition, first, there should be no disgust or impatience or anger when people talk, only indifference and an inner peace and silence. Also, second, there should not be a mere neutral quiet and indifference, but a positive sense of calm, detachment, and peace. Again, third, there should be no going out of the body so that you do not know what is happening or what you are doing. There may be a sense of not being the body but something else, that is good. But there should be a perfect awareness of all that is going on in and around you. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, moreover, this condition, even when it is perfect, is only a transitional sign. It is intended to bring a certain state of freedom and liberation. But in that peace, there must come the feeling of the divine presence, the sense of the Divine Mother's force, power, working in you, on you, the joy or ananda. If you can concentrate in the heart as well as in the head, then these things can more easily come. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the experience you have of a division in the being with the inner void and indifferent, udasina, not sorrowful but neutral and indifferent, is an experience which many pass through and is highly valued by the sannyasis. For us, says our Lord, it is a passage only to something larger and more positive. In it, the old small human feelings fall away and a sort of calm neutral void is made for a higher nature to manifest. It must be fulfilled and replaced by a sense of large silence and freedom into which the Divine Mother Consciousness can flow from above. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says, the condition in which all moments become superficial, empty, with no connection with the soul, is a stage in the withdrawal from the surface consciousness to the inner consciousness. When one goes into the inner consciousness, it is felt as a calm, pure existence without any moment, but eternally tranquil, unmoved and separate from the outer nature. This comes as a result of detaching oneself from the moments, standing back from them, and is a very important moment of the sadhana. The first result of it is an entire quietude. But afterwards, that quietude begins without the quietude ceasing to fill with the psychic and other inner moments, which creates a true inner and spiritual life behind the outer life and nature. Our Lord says it is then easier to govern and change the later. At present, there are fluctuations in your consciousness because this inner state is not yet fully developed and established. When it is there will still be fluctuations in the outer circumstances. But the inner quiet force, love, will be constant, and the superficial fluctuations will be watched by the inner being without its being shaken or troubled, until they are removed by the complete outer change. Our Lord Sri Aurobindo says the condition in your work should mean that the inner being should be awake, and there should be now the double consciousness. It is the inner being which has the inner happiness, the calm and quiet and the silence, free from any ripple of thought, the inwardly silent repetition of the name. The automatic repetition of the mantra is a part of the same phenomena. That is what ought to happen to the mantra. It must become a conscious and spontaneous thing, repeating itself in the very substance of the consciousness itself, no longer needing any effort of the mind. All these doubts and questionings of the mind are useless. What has to happen is that this inner consciousness should always be there, not troubled by any disturbance, with the constant silence, inner happiness and quietude, while the outer consciousness does what is necessary in the way of work, what is better, has that done through it, pushing the work with so much continuous force without feeling tired. If you feel quiet, surrender, feeling more intense with the surrender. If the mind is empty room, if the mind is an empty room receiving the light, experiences and descents are good for the preparation, but For the change of the consciousness is the thing that is needed. It is the proof that experiences and descents have had an effect. Descent of peace are good, but increasingly stable quietude and silence of the mind is something more valuable. When that is there, outer things can come, usually one at a time, light or strength, force or ananda or knowledge. It is not necessity to go on forever, having always the same experience. A time comes when the consciousness begins to take a new voice and another state, says our Lord, Aurobindo.